It helps to unmute. Hello, everyone. So I was basically just going off saying, hi, everyone. I'm trying to figure out where all my equipment is because I just had to reorganize over the weekend. I'm getting a new PC soon, which is much needed, trust me. So I reconfigured everything and now stuff is in new spots. But that kind of seems to be standard quo lately. Yes, I just picked up on the no sound. I forgot to click a button. So let's fix that as well. And I'm trying something new. I have the audio cranking so I can actually hear it too, because I rarely get to hear the music, and I realize, oh wait, microphone's gonna pick that up softly. If you need me to adjust levels, like, just now, let me know and I'll be happy to do it for you. I'm excited for today because, as always, I very much enjoy being able to do the paint-alongs with you. And it's one of those things where this is also a new set of miniatures that we have coming out with WizKids. It is the Magic the Gathering Unpainted Magic Miniatures line. What you are going to see today is already out in stores. I am doing the Obzedat Ghost Council, and that is for sale in stores for $8.99. And it's actually a really good set. You get this awesome base and 5 translucent minis that go along with it. So what I wanted to do today is show you how to paint this particular type of plastic, because I get asked that a lot, believe it or not. How do I paint this plastic to keep it so it's transparent, so the light still plays it through it, and it doesn't become opaque? And that's, it's an honest to God question. So yeah, let's address that. Let's look at that together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use just generic terms because I understand everyone has their own different supplies of paints. So what I'm going to do is explain to you the type of paint, ink or wash type of thing that I'm using. And I'm also going to show you how you can do some stone effect on the special base that comes with this, using only white and black, because another thing people run into is, well, I don't have these exact gray colors that you're talking about, which is totally okay, which I think is a good thing to show you how you can take your, start with black, keep adding white, and you can add your gradients in as you need to. So this is one of those things where we're going to sit, I'm going to paint for you, and if you have questions along the way, by all means, ask in the chat. I do ask you to put in question in caps, and then your question that follows. It makes it a lot easier for me to spot it. And hello, Ron, Ed, and Viper. Thank you so much for jumping into the chat and saying hello already. It is great to see those familiar names. And while I'm painting and while I'm doing and while I'm waiting for the paint to literally dry, there is someone I'm going to be sharing with you today as a little bit of a surprise, because they are also available in stores now. So I'm gonna bring them up, and I've already named this one. This is Jafar. So in stores now is the adult black dragon, and we'll be taking a closer look at this one today as I wait for certain parts of the Ghost Council minis to dry. But this is just a quick little preview of them. But if this is one of those dragons from the chromatic line that you have been keeping your eye out for in your stores today, they released today. So contact your FLGS. We always encourage you, contact your FLGS first. See if they have this in stock. If for some reason you do not have an FLGS or they do not have it in stock, then you could always opt to shop online and check things out at shop.wizkids.com. Just a little side note there. And if you are new here, welcome. Thank you for joining us. It is great to have you as part of this group. Don't forget, down below, there's that lovely subscribe button. And if you want to find out when we go live for things like Mini Mayhem, as well as Much Ado About Gaming, then you want to make sure you ring the bell so you hopefully, because you know how things can be on YouTube. I know that I don't get the WizKids notifications for some reason, even though I'm set up to get it on my other account. So hopefully by ringing the bell, you might have to click and unclick and re-click, because that sometimes helps reset it, but it'll give you notifications, long story short. That being said, what do you say I flip the screen a little bit here so you can see what we're going to be working on, and I'm going to walk you through a couple of little tips and tricks that I have for when you're painting multiple miniatures for a set, right? Because this is really a set. It is 5 miniatures in a special base. So here we have the overhead, and remember, my focus is always going to be so that focus is up here, not down on the table, because, yes, down on the table is cool and everything. However, you're not going to see me painting the miniatures if I switch the zooms. So you can see here, I have three of the ghosties on, they're basically popsicle sticks. So this is a trick that I do when I know I'm painting miniatures all the same way. I take some duct tape, wrap it so that it's sticky side up. I will then put it onto the wide popsicle stick. This is one of those 1-inch wide ones. You can get them at any craft store. And then I will stick the minis onto the tape that's on the popsicle stick. And it's secure enough so that you can paint them, but it won't mar things when you go to remove them. So that's just a quick little, if you're doing an assembly line system for miniatures, just get a whole bunch of these. And I definitely recommend doing the 1-inch wide popsicle sticks, because if you go more narrow, and yes, you could get away with more narrow, it makes them very tipsy. So I was able to get 3 on one, 2 on the other. I do recommend you leave space for your thumb to hold onto something. I mean, you can hold it like this, but I find every so often it sometimes will pop out of your fingertips. So definitely leave space for a grip. And there you go. So that's my little tip when painting multiple minis at the same time with the same technique. And then here is that special base that I was talking about. You can see they have these key lock features. Now I've already put these onto their popsicle sticks, so I'm not going to show you the base, but you'll see when I take them off that these will all then interlock onto here. So what I'm going to start doing is I'm actually going to start with my black paint, and hold on a second. Did my kitten ran away with the paper towels. One second. Come here. All right. I'm going to be fancy and use a cloth this time. All right. So what I am going to do is I'm first going to get the base painted up in straight up black. Now remember, this is primed already, so you don't have to worry about priming this base, which is actually super helpful. So I'm going to get this painted, and it's going to give it time to dry, because I want to make sure, and this happens often, when you go and you have recesses like this in your miniature, it may take a little bit longer for that paint to dry, just because it's not as open to the air. So by painting this black first, it's going to give it time to dry while I take care of the ghosties. Then I can go back in and start doing my dry brush work as I raise the levels of gray. Why not double-sided tape? Ron Davis is asking. It is not strong enough, and oftentimes I have found that when it gets into contact with something like a liquid like paint, the adhesion gives up. Duct tape I use because it is a type of tape that is made to actually be okay near liquids and or water type of thing, and it won't lose its stickiness. That's why I use duct tape, not double-sided tape. So I'm going to start with painting this one first, and like I said, straight up black paint. I am using Vallejo in this case. However, if you have a black paint at home, by all means, use that black paint. And then I'm just going to use a basic brush for this. Nothing fancy, just a large round brush to get into all those nooks and crannies and everything like that. I'll start getting to more specific brushes as we go along with different techniques. And I'm just going to get a nice healthy dollop onto my plate. I always use paper plates. For me, it's just easier to do. No fuss, no muss. And I'm going to just go for, I'll show you the brush I'm going to use, this style of brush, okay? Just your basic round brush. Now, this particular brush is the Royal and Langnickel. One second. Okay, so I'm going to go for the Royal and Langnickel because that is a brush that I find does really well, and it's actually something you can find in many craft stores. If you have a different brush, that is perfectly okay. And it's one of those things where, yes, I can recommend certain brands, but ultimately it boils down to what you are comfortable working with. I am not going to bother putting this base onto a base to paint. I'm fine with my fingers getting some black paint on them. That's totally okay. So I am going to focus this paint on and just start working around with it. Now this paint I already know is thin enough because I've worked with it a few times. I always recommend that you get your paint to be about the consistency of, say, runny ketchup or maple syrup or a really heavy cream. That tends to be sort of the magic level of where you want your paint thickness to be. It just helps with spreading everything around and not getting it so the paint is super glooped up. That's a technical term, glooped. It keeps the paint from gathering in spots and adding in too many layers of excess, so to speak, because paint can build up on itself. And keep in mind, I always explain things as if you were brand new to painting. I want to make sure this is accessible to everyone who's joining us. If you're a serious painter, you've painted before, I'm sure you're sitting here thinking like, oh, well, yeah, duh, but just in case we have someone who is new to painting in the audience, I want to make sure they understand why paint consistency is important. And this is across the board for any type of brand. Let me shift my palette over because I'm right-handed and I'm reaching to the left. That making no sense. So when you start adding too thick a layer of paint, you will start to lose important details. When you thin your paint, it makes the paint easier to move around across the surface, get it where you need it to go without adding too thick of a layer. Now notice I am also not putting the black as much as possible up onto these, because what I don't want to have happen is to put the miniatures back on this base, and because they're transparent, I don't want that stonework to really play through where they're going to lock onto the base. I still want them to have a lighter coloration. I may even go so far as to go back in and just do a very light gray back around once I'm done getting this all painted up. And the reason why I went for this round brush is so that I can get this into the little nooks and crannies. That does definitely help. Just making sure we're keeping in focus here. Focus is looking good. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to get the surface, top surface done, and then I'm going to work around to get the edges. But I'm very excited to get this painted up today. It's one of those things where there are some really gorgeous miniatures in the Magic the Gathering set from Wave 13. Again, available in stores now. And if you missed that live stream where I did show those off to you, when you're done here today, feel free to jump over to that stream and take a look at it, because there are some gorgeous sculpts with that one. I am so very pleased with that, and there are other ones that I can't wait to get my hands on and actually paint. Whether I'm able to do them live on stream is a different story, but if I do paint anything else, especially with a break coming up, I will make sure I share it on my socials, and I'll tag WizKids socials as well, so that everyone can kind of check those out. I have been seeing there are people who are starting to share, so keep an eye out. There are some really gorgeous interpretations going for the minis from the Magic the Gathering. I know this is absolutely fascinating. I'm just putting black all over the base, again, avoiding these little locks as much as possible. Now, I don't know where everyone is located, but in my area, we're slotted for a snowstorm, which that should be tons of fun. We'll see what happens with that. I actually got some snow on Monday too, so there's already some whiteness going on the grass and in the trees. And I think we're slotted for 15 plus. We shall see. We shall see what happens. Okay, so again, we're just continuing around. This is why I want to get this done up first, because once I get this black base coat in, it'll make it easier for me to start dry, because I'm going to do dry brush all the way through of the grays. Dry brushing on new colors to get this to look like worn old stone. And it also, if I do it correctly, it also will help me sort of avoid the need to go in and do a black wash, because what I want to kind of do, just to sort of give this an older stone look, is play with a green wash. We shall see. Sometimes I'll even do a brown, like a combination of the green and the brown. So we're almost getting there with the top. I just have to go around and do the edges. And my goal right now is to get into the little grooves and everything. That's why I like this pointed brush. The nice thing is the camera is also very helpful for letting me see if I've missed any spots. Some of it is definitely wet paint glare. Others are, nope, that's a little bit that can get a little bit of extra color on there. Like right over through here. Okay, so that's the top of the surface. Now I'm going to work on the edging. If you wanted to put this up on top of, you'll see I do it, it's the pill bottle with some blue tack on top. You could do that too, so it's not as hands-on. California is, I should hope California is warm. Don't tempt me. I'm cold. I am so cold today. I tell ya. If I could do fingerless gloves, I would. That's a little chilly. 'Tis the season. It was funny. There was a comment on Twitter. Someone was like, oh, are you doing like the ghosts of, you know, Christmas present, future, and past type of thing? I'm like, the thought definitely, you know, it crossed my mind in terms of thematically appropriate for this time of year because everyone sort of is familiar if they don't fully know A Christmas Carol. I just thought it'd be fun. Plus, I really did want to show this whole painting the clear plastic technique in case anyone is going out there and they are painting minis this coming holiday break. You know, kind of helps to have that information underneath your belt. Almost there. And I will say, you do need to make sure you get your brush working in on these grooves here. I mean, it's good for details, but they are deeper grooves. So just heads up, it helps to let the bristles push in to those crevices. And then as soon as I get this little zone done, I'm going to set this down, rinse my brush, and then we're going to jump over to how I like to paint this plastic. Okay, so there you go. That is the whole base done up. I'm just quickly looking for a couple of any spot checks. We're looking pretty good. All right, so I'm going to put this over here to dry. I do have water. Just, you know, basic water. I will say if it's something where you're going to thin your paints, you may want to consider, depending on the hardness of your water, using distilled water, because minerals from hard water can sometimes come into play and affect how your paints will function. You can even make them, it's called oxidize. So it can even make them oxidize and shift the color a little bit. So that's something to be aware of. If you know you have very hard water, then I definitely recommend using, you could even use, they sell distilled water everywhere. So you could even buy a big old gallon of that and that will last you quite a while. I know it sounds silly, but if you are, you know, super serious about your paints and keeping the colors true and everything like that, just a little tip, a little hint. All right, let me move this back over here. So I'm going to start working on these lovelies, these ghosties. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you're getting 5 of these minis with this. So 5 members of the council. Keep that in mind. So if you look, I have over there-ish on the other side of the screen, I have the rendered sample of what these look like essentially. The colors really are up to you. But to keep this look, what I am going to do is I'm going to work with washes. And I find, especially if you want something that has more of a magical glowing effect, if you have a wash with a gloss to it, I would very much recommend doing that. And I'm going to work with an emerald green wash first, because I kind of want to play around with this teal-like blue color. So I'm going to pick up these, oops, stay up there, and I'm going to switch over to, it's a brush I use for washes. Similar to the one I just used, but it's a little bit more, you can see it's a little bit more frayed, but I find that when the brush is slightly more frayed, the wash behaves a lot better with it. And I'm just going to quickly adjust the volume here for the music. There. So I'm going to go in first with this emerald green. And I'm going to focus it from the sort of, I'm going to break them down into thirds. So from 2/3 up. So basically I'm going to start about at the knee level here, because I want to keep, as you can see in the render, it stays more of a clear tone. So I'm just going to start putting this here and make a point to keep this tipped downward. And it's going to bring some subtle color to the miniature. And I'm going to bring that all the way up. And again, this is just an emerald green. And I am not looking for a full color. Now, one thing to keep in mind is it does take more of the color on than what the studio lights are showing you, because right now it's getting a lot of light playing through it. But in real life, the green is showing up a lot more. So I'm just going to go around and do that. And you may find that you need to do a couple layers if you're going in with a wash. But the key point here is to keep this tipped. And I'm just, you know, focusing on those upper 2/3 of the miniature. But this is why I have them all lined up together, because I know I'm doing the exact same thing on all of them. You could opt if you wanted to. They are all different colors. That is certainly an option. You don't have to make them this tealish blue. I have chosen to, just because I happen to like that color. But it could be fun to play around, you know, keep one more green, one more of the red tones, one purple, one like goldy orange or yellow. The possibilities are endless, my dears. I'm just going to go through and make sure, get the top of his noggin there. And then right now what I'm doing is I'm looking for major puddles, which I'm not seeing too many of, but I am working them back up. And you can see now that that green is taking on. So same thing to the next dude. Just going to go around and do this green. So it's sort of like aiming for the knees and drawing it up. And you're going to find there's a lot of texture and folds in these, which I personally very much appreciate. And I'll show you why. It's a fun little tip that I like to do to give things a magical glow, or I guess in the case of ghosts, sort of an ectoplasm, if you will. But that comes once they are dry. And luckily, because we have the base to work on, while these dry, I can work on the base, and then I can show you this last little technique. So you're going to see I'm going to go around with this green on all of them. Then I'm going to jump to the blue, because by the time I finish the other three, these two should be okay to go again for another round of wash with the blue instead of the green. And it's okay to feather it down every so often so it gets a little bit lower. And again, if you have any questions, even if you need tips about other aspects of miniature painting, it doesn't have to be limited to just what you're seeing here. I am by all means happy to answer them for you and do the best I can. And don't forget, I will be showing you that dragon. I'm going to get these guys washed up, and then I'm going to show you the black dragon too, because that's available now. I can talk about it while I paint. That one it's the second in line for the chromatic dragons. We already had the white adult dragon come out, and that is a beauty. That one is lifted up in flight, the white one. This one actually has 3 legs down on the ground with one outstretched, and I think it's a really super pose, quite frankly. All right, so again, I'm looking through here, and I'm just shifting around any major puddling I'm seeing. Yep. But you can see they're taking on the green tone now. And I'm just going to do a quick little brush around the base here. Nothing too heavy, because I still want some of the translucent to come through. But just a little nod to a touch of color at the bottom. All right, so that's one grouping done. Shift over to the next one. Let's see here. Will I be coloring the eyes like with a single color, otherworldly glow type thing? I can. I'll show you a little trick that I have. Like I said, there's this paint that I like to use. It gives it a very magical effect. So I could very much go in for the ones that have faces, because, you know, there is no face here. This has no face. So where there are faces, I can definitely go in and sort of do the little, you know, dot, dot glowing eyes, which quite frankly, I love to do for a lot of different creatures, especially magical based ones. And I did read up on this council. This is from Magic the Gathering, obviously. But it's the Ravnica. Little nod to the council there. And it was an interesting lore, what I could, quickly glean of it, because I'm not familiar with Magic the Gathering as a player. But reading on it, it was an interesting system, if you will. So it's like they are lords and ladies who have, made a significant impact or mark in their livelihood while they were alive, and then brought in to this council because of that. So it's sort of like in a way, having an immortal presence. But what I found fascinating is that while you can be invited on, you can also be kicked off, which, that was an interesting little, so it's like, yeah, you can be brought on, but if you don't prove yourself as a council member, you can also be removed. And it was a very short little blurb that I read up on, so that's truly the extent of my knowledge of the Obzedat Council. And let's see, your question. How easy would it be to put lights in the base to shine up through them? You could. If you look at the base, you can see there is space in those locks to drill holes, but you would have to create a false base. Okay, you'd have to create a secondary base that would give you room to put in an LED light. There are various ways of doing that, but you could rig it. It's just one of those things you'd have to consider how you want to rig it light-wise, and yes, you will need a false bottom base to have that happen. But yeah, you could very easily rig that. It's just get yourself a hand drill to drill those holes into the bottom. Play it safe, go easy on that plastic. I wouldn't do a power drill or anything like that. But you can. Absolutely. In fact, stuff like that is always fun. I have seen, there have been some really great uses of, especially if they're minis that have been put up on the stands, so it looks like they're in flight. I've seen people get LED lights involved. And like I said, give it more of a false bottom so there's room for the mechanics and everything. But it is rather incredible seeing how just a different touch of light can really transform a miniature. I've seen a few people do it with the beholders. All right, they will have the base lit up. So that's been cool to see. I just recently saw someone do it with, I want to say it was either the bronze or the clockwork dragon that we have. And that was impressive. They went for a reddish orange hue. So it just had this almost menacing look to it because of the color of the light. But it played beautifully off the gold and bronze tones. So yeah, it's happening a lot more and more now as these clear plastics are being brought into use for miniatures. People are having fun with the spell effects and getting crafty, which, hey, I am all for. And it's across the board. I'm seeing it in a bunch of different groups too. So if you're interested, there's always, Facebook groups, lots of miniature painting Facebook groups where you could see that in action, and other tabletop crafting groups as well. But definitely could be a thing. And now you've got me thinking about doing it because I have a really cool one. There are these tea lights. They're actually nice flatter profile. They're maybe, I want to say, about a 1/2 inch thick. Not like the old ones that are 1 inch thick, like the ones you could find at Dollar Tree. But non sequitur. But it's this color shifting LED. So it goes like blues to purples to greens to reds to pinks. So that could be a fun one to try and figure out how to include and go from there with it. That's actually got a nice deep socket in there. Let me just make sure. So right now I'm just going around one last time, shifting the wash around a little bit more. And then I'm going to jump over to doing blue next. I'm going to go back to my twofers. I am going to rinse my brush in my water. Now, one thing I want to make sure you understand, and it's going to show up as I show you the two that I just finished painting. It's one of those things where Some people get worried when they do washes and things start to cloud. That is okay. We're going to talk about what you do for that because it's normal. It's to be expected, quite honestly. Let's see here. Michael Wheeler saying, had a friend do the patina copper dragon that was driven mad, and the patina's not as easy as some would think, but there are some pretty good tricks with it. Quite frankly, what I have found the most effective for patinas is to opt into a more craft-based style paint because it carries through a more aged. Because if you look at actual patina, it has almost like this, I don't want to say dusty, but it's a very matte quality. So I have found when I do my own patinas, I actually did it for a dome thing with the terrain build. The craft paints have a better patina effect. I need a quick sip of tea. Pardon me. So, just a little tip for your friend. Okay, let me close my green wash because I don't want this to spill everywhere. I'm going to put that over there. Now I'm going to jump up to a navy blue, dark blue wash. Okay. But here's what I want you to see now that these fellows are having a chance to dry. You can see there is almost this dusky finish starting to happen with them. All right. That is okay. They are not shiny. They are not glowing. There's a trick to it. Basically what I'll do is once this dries and once I do my little fun little magic effect that I like to do on my clear miniatures for supernatural magical creatures, I will then go in and use a gloss varnish. And that gloss varnish brings it back up to being more transparent, more translucent, and having that glow see-through ability effect to it. Now, if you're looking here, you can see that there is still some areas that have a bit of dampness to it with the wash. That is okay because I'm looking to blend these colors in some areas. So now I'm going to go into my blue and I'm going to start, remember how I said I'm breaking it into thirds. So I'm going to move up to mid-chest level and start there and just start getting this paint moving around. And I'm not going to take it all the way down to where I started, but I am going to have a little fun and just sort of move it around a bit to get this color to blend. All right. And you may find every so often, this guy it's a heavier, because there's more plastic to it, a little bit heavier. So you may have to every so often just carefully press it back down. But I'm going to go in with this blue now. And I'm actually going to let the blue sort of puddle more, because I do want that to overtake in spots. I don't want it to be too light-handed. So you can see right there. That's the effect I want to get. And again, just same thing. I'm going to work this around and just sort of end it about, let's say like about the waist is where I want this blue to not go too much farther down the body. Is it a body? Down the form? Is it a body if it's a ghost? Oh, you would like to see, Ron's saying you would like to see my do the light thing? Maybe I might have time this weekend to fiddle and show that off. Then again, I'm going to tip down here so you can see that it starts to pull and collect in the, I guess it's the caplet around his shoulders. And just every so often I will go slightly lower in a couple spots. But you can see how those colors are now starting to blend into each other, which is what I wanted. I find by kind of blending a couple colors together, it gives it a little bit more visual interest than just doing straight up. Because I could have done this just straight up blue. But my eye looking at that render right now, I am picking up the greens and the blues together. In fact, we'll put it near each other. So that's giving me more the effect that I wanted by having the two colors blended together. I'm just making sure I'm getting all the points I want to hit. And again, in this case, it's okay if it puddles in the deeper recesses. I actually kind of want that to happen. See that? So the details pop out a little bit more. All right, I'm happy with the blending on this one. You can see it next to its rendered self. I'm going to move over to the next fellow. Yes, this is another fellow. It's a mix of different styles of ghosts too, which I find quite interesting. You have some who look like proper lords, like this one looks like a lord-like person. Then you have the one without like the faces that are far more spooky and almost Reaper-like in their appearance, like Grim Reaper. And as you get to the midsection, just, you know, lightly go over that brush to get some blending happening. And again, if you want to bring out any edge texture, tip it so that the wash falls back and up and into those areas. And every so often go a little bit lower, like I'm going lower here, just to get that blending action in. Just quickly jump over here. You're very welcome, Matthew. Like I said, this is one that more often than not, at least once a week, I will have a private message sent to me, whether it's on Twitter or Instagram is also where I get a lot of painting DMs. And people want to know how to do this plastic because it is showing up more and more in miniatures. And it's a very fair, and it's a question that I want to make sure does get addressed so people feel like they have a comfort zone with painting these, but still keeping it so you can see my hand is playing underneath it. So you still have that color, but you don't lose, you know, the spooky you can see through. It's a ghost type of thing. All right, this one's almost done as well. Part of me wants to add just a little bit more here too, because there's this really cool collar effect thing going on here. I'm gonna try and bring that out slightly more. So I'm gonna go a little bit heavier on the blue wash with this guy towards the top, for those of you who are gonna try and recreate this. Yeah, I'm happier with that. So there you go. These two have that blending going on. I think what I'm gonna do is just quickly, like you saw me do before, just a couple spots. Nothing too overdone, but there's just a couple points. I do want to bring the blue down just slightly more. And then I'll jump over to the other three. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna let those guys dry. So they're pretty much, I need them to dry before I move on to the next step. So I'm gonna go over to these three. Like, see, here's the one that I said it's like almost a Grim Reaper. Oh, and there's the cat here. Joys of having cats and miniature painting. And again, you can see how it's gotten that dusky, dusty finish. That's going to be fixed when we put the gloss varnish on these. So don't let that deter you or scare you off or think you've done something wrong with the wash. Now, I have been using washes. You absolutely can also use inks. I do recommend you play around with your inks a little bit because some inks are more concentrated than others, and you may find you need to thin your ink. In this case, I do not thin my washes. I am comfortable enough with my washes to know how they're going to function. I don't feel the need to thin it. But some inks you may want to add a few drops of water to them. Just so that you're not completely obliterating them with a really dark color of the ink. You feel for me with the cat and mini dilemma. I mean, I've got one who I didn't have problems before the little girl. If you follow me on Twitter, you know I have a kitten. Well, she's not a kitten, but she's like a forever kitten. This cat named Rory, and oh boy, does she test my patience sometimes. She does like to collect things. I swear she's a dragon. She is a dragon in disguise. She has run off with bits of minis and squirreled them away into her hoard, which I still have yet to find. Now there is this detail work that's happening on the side here, so I'm purposely letting a little bit more of this wash puddle in there because I want that to show up. See right through here? But yeah, she's run off with like a head to a Dracolich that I have. Twice. Which, oh goody, I'm sure it's going to show up one day. But that was not a fun discovery when I'm realizing something's missing. All right, I'm happy with how this is looking. I'm just gonna put a little bit more at the top here of the blue. And now it's just a matter of letting that one dry. Moving over. See, this one has a face too. This one has a face as well. It's a skull. So this one has a skull. The others have faces. But it's an interesting mix. This one I believe is a skull on the staff or an orb. I'm trying to decide. It looks like it's a skull with a mouth agape situation. Now for next week, I am definitely looking forward to doing some more show you how to, because I'm going to break out if you haven't seen them yet, we have a new line of paper craft that will be coming out starting in January. And I have a preview set of the Icewind Dale paper craft for the Lodge and the 10 Towns. So I thought next week it would be a lot of fun just to sort of have a set a wintry scene type of layout. I'm going to have to figure out how to do it per se, so that you can see my putting things together, and then also the layout itself. I have a week to figure that out. It's all good. We'll get there. We'll figure it out. But I thought that would be a fun way to sort of wrap up 2020. Is that a phrase I could actually say? But I thought that'd be a good way to sort of wrap things up for 2020, so you can get an idea of this paper craft that's going to be out in January and what it looks like. Because we also have Arviatares coming out beginning of January. So, you know, kind of tapping into our Icewind Dale stuff. Yeah, this one has a lot of really nice folds that I'm trying to play up right now. But if you ever have too much wash on your brush, just blot it off, and then you can actually use the brush to wick away, like I'm doing it right now, to wick away excessive puddles that you don't want to have happen. But I'm looking, okay, a little bit too much back here. So let me just, with my dried brush, pull it back up. That's better. I want to keep the puddling through here because I really want those folds to show. But there were some that were just getting to be a little too much too much. All right, one more to go. They're really lovely, Ron. I will tell you this right now. They are lovely buildings. The details on them are great. The material I am very much a fan of. And again, this is coming from making terrain, using terrain. It's a good material. And I like the fact that it's a paper craft, which means it's sort of a more lightweight, collapsible option, takes up less space. For those of you who, when the time comes, you start traveling and doing your DM thing, or maybe you're a player who just treats your DM to you bring the terrain and, you know, they get to use it type of thing. But it'll make it a lot easier for traveling around and whatnot. And taking up less space and storage. Which, trust me, I fully 100%, I get that one. So as you can see here, this is definitely a skull. Menacing grin on their face. So I'm going to just bring this blue in and around. And again, some really great folds in this fabric. Just feather it down a little bit in a couple spots. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the coverage this is getting. I think I want a little bit of blue down here. And let's try and get a little through here. Just very subtle. Just want to double check. Don't want to get too overloaded. Yeah, I'm going to do just a little bit through here. And again, if you see there's like little bubbles happening, just dip your brush and dry it off. But here we go. So that is the other three. So right now I just want them to dry. But you can see it's brought out all those details, but look, you're still able to see through. You're still able to see my hand playing behind these. All right. But now you can see more of the details coming through. And it's played off exactly as I wanted it to. I'm going to put one next to it. You can see you get those greens and the blues that you're seeing in the render as well. All right, so you're going to go live over here for a little bit while you dry. Let me rinse my brush off. Get that going. Just checking some stream settings. And oh my gosh, it's already 12:45. I knew this was going to be a longer stream just because the paint-alongs tend to be. So, let me check my base. My base is almost there. So I'm going to lift my camera up a little bit. You get to see some behind the scenes stuff. Let me move this. I'm done with my washes. But here is, I might have to play around with the camera a little bit here with the zoom. Let me adjust. Now, I'm gonna hold it up next to me very soon, but I want you to see some of the details more up close. So that for me is just a matter of finding my mouse. There we go. Come over to this monitor, darling. And configuring video so that I can play, adjust the focus. Okay, so here we have this black dragon, and it is a thing of beauty. Because look at all this detail. I have seen so many black dragons done pre-painted wise, where it is, you know, yes, it is black, but then the grays come into play. I am very much appreciating and enjoying this goldish tan that is being used to enhance the details. But I really wanted you to see the details in this impressive creature. Look at the wings. So here we have the wings. You can see there are the folds, the weathering. And then if we look to the back, you can see the musculature. You can see the scales working up along the legs. This, you know, I like to call them plates. The plate-like effect along the back and around onto the tail. And you have the fin, or the ridge. Again, more texture and detail playing through here. The claws are, again, that goldish tan. And then, here's the face. With the glowing red eyes. It's such a fantastic sculpt. And I really am a fan of this particular pose. You can just see the strength that's in it, the tension in the musculature. But I wanted you to see all these fantastic details in this pre-painted black dragon, which is out today. Out today, $69.99. FLGS, let them know I saw the dragon. I want the dragon. Give me the dragon. Well, not give me, well, I would appreciate purchasing the dragon. So take a look with your FLGS. FLGS not an option. Then you can by all means go to dndmini.com because this is a D&D Icons of the Realm adult black dragon. You can also check on shop.wizkids.com. But I mean, look like this. Look. Like just the wear and tear factors in the wings. It's a beautifully done piece. It really is. And let me flip to overhead so you get a sense. So this is, you know, I could hide behind it, literally. But it's beautifully done. It's great. And then let me just grab a medium. I want to give you a sense of scale here. So here is with a medium placed on the base. Yoink, pull it over a little bit more. So that's your black dragon. And it's a beautiful, beautiful dragon. It has this menacing, sinister quality to it, which, I mean, yes, dragons, they all have some sort of intimidation factor to them. But for black dragons especially, it's just this, it oozes just this, I don't know. You don't want to mess with them, let's put it that way. Hence also why I went for Jafar, because it reminds me of, you know, Jafar and the personality and all of that jazz. So now, while these are drying, I'm going to go back to overhead. I'm going to drop this down again. Let me check my focus. Might have to adjust a little bit. We'll see. I'm now going to go back to my base. And yes, I will need to do a slight tweak of my camera focus. No big deal. Yeah, that's better. So now that we have that going, what I'm going to do is start mixing my black with white to start building up to grays. And because I have my heat on, I will need to add a little bit more black this go around. And I'm going to start by adding a drop of white into my black to create a darker gray. Oh, shake your paints too. I haven't used this white. Actually, I don't think I have used this white ever. So bear with me. I need to get this one shaken up. Shake it up. Although luckily, yeah, that's better. Okay, so this might be a slightly lighter gray than I meant. This is also why I like these brushes, because they have this pointed end to them. And I'm always using it for mixing paint. So let me see how this mixes up. Oh, I think we'll be good. Yeah, it's not too light. I may actually need to add a little bit more. Yeah, gonna add a little bit more of the white and just mix it to a point where, no, that was the black. Grab the white bottle. Because then what I can do is once this gets to the level of starting gray, I can then just keep raising the tone of gray, making it lighter and lighter as I go. Okay, that's getting more to where I want it to be. Not quite black. It's sort of that charcoal gray at this point, which I want. Okay, so I have the charcoal gray going. Wipe the end of your brush off if you're using your brush for mixing. Of course, you can also mix it like a toothpick or something along those lines. And then what I'm going to do is shift over to, I love these style brushes for dry brushing larger pieces. There you go. So it's a flat brush with the angle to it. I find those work quite nicely. So if you haven't seen dry brushing before, it's basically you dip the point of your brush in. You don't load the brush up. Okay, you don't want it to get all the way up to here. Just a little bit goes a long way. And you simply take a towel, paper towel ideally, but again, my cat ran away with my paper towels, so I'm just using a cloth towel. And you just do it until you brush off an amount here. And then, cat hair. And then you take this brush and you pull it across. Now you're not going to notice a huge jump in color with this layer, which is okay. Let me put this over here. That's all right. I'm not looking for a full drastic jump, but there is a difference you can see starting to happen. I'm basically going to go around 3 times. So I'm moving up from black to a charcoal gray, then I'm going to go to a mid-tone gray, then a light gray, and then to almost a white gray. But the nice thing about this big old brush means I can cover the surface a lot faster. And the important thing is you don't want to have your brush sitting like this. If you do that, you're going to get that into the recesses where you really don't want this color to go too much. The goal is to have it float across the top. You're just getting the top surface of this. Okay, so you can see as I move it around and get the lighter showing over the darker. And that's the goal there. And since it is dry brush, it actually dries faster, the paint. I'm just going to quickly go around the edges here. Again, just keep it light, not too heavy-handed. You basically want the paint to float across the surface. You're not looking to coat it. It's not like what I just did with the black entirely. You don't want it coated. You want just a very light addition of a new lighter color. You can see in the different angles of lighting how that comes into play. All right, now I'm going to add some more white to the same paint. Okay? Going to keep building this up. This is where I said you can get by with doing just black and white paint on this. You don't need your rows of grays. Granted, I have rows of very many grays, but it's not necessary. Now this is where I do want the color to jump up a bit more. I don't want it to be in that charcoal gray. I want it to be a noticeable lighter gray. And I will say it helps to have an original bit of black next to it so you can see how much your color is lifting from the original. Okay, you can see here it's definitely starting to get to be a lighter gray tone, which I do want. That is good. Wipe off the base here. I'm going to go back in, doing the same thing. Now just make sure when you are dry brushing, you don't want to go too crazy if it's still slightly damp or tacky, which it is not. I'm testing right now. It is not. So we're good there. So I'm going to go back in, get this lighter gray on here, and same thing. Start dragging across and you can see the difference happening again. And you don't have to do just gray for stone. Keep that in mind. Stone comes in a variety of tones and colors. And don't tell me they don't come in colorful colors either. There are some sandstone, rainbow sandstone dunes and whatnot that carry oranges to purples to reds to yellows, and they're beautiful. But right now I'm just going around and going in with my mid-gray. Not to be confused with Midgard. Hello, Goblin Kate. How are you doing? You're learning things, yay! Okay, so here we have that mid-gray, and you can see it's faster each go-around. That is the point. Because I'm not looking to cover. I am looking to start adding depth and interest to this. I don't want this to be a flat mid-gray. I want there to be the colors that are lower tones. And now I'm going to just quickly edge. And I'm using these little locked pieces just to be able to quickly hold the top without touching the paint. And what you're seeing I'm doing here is I like to, especially when doing edges, I do want the edges to be slightly more worn looking, so I will start to add a little bit more of the lighter tones there. You'll see why in a minute when I go up another level of color. Okay, so that is the mid-gray. Put that down and let me get the white out again. Not white out. I'm doing well, thank you for asking. And this one I really want to be a lighter gray. Go back to that brush with a tip. And I may even go lighter, because I want this to be a significant difference in the color. Yeah, I want that lighter. It's still lighter gray, but not as light as I would like it to be. That's why I like doing this mixing thing, because you can play around and just keep bringing things up, 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 up. Okay, now we're getting to, yeah, that's getting into a light gray that I want to get to. All right, let's wipe again. And back to dry brushing. Again, just the tip of the brush. I mean, the paint has moved up higher. I also don't rinse my brushes between dry brushing if I'm using the same color, because I have found that the brush will sometimes take on excess water and then things can happen. And if it's just a matter of building up the same color, it's not such a big deal. If you really wanted to make a huge difference, then you could actually use a couple of different flat brushes and rotate through. But here I'm going in and I'm really making sure to keep this brush running almost parallel to the surface. Okay, not perpendicular. I don't want to get it down the grooves. I want it to get, so it's almost like this as I drag it across. All right, so here we go in with that lighter tone. I'm just going to go around and you can see how this lovely texture starts to come out. I am here for that. Spin this a little bit. And work my way around. And again, the bigger brush means it's a lot faster, and it also gives you the ability to better float the brush across the surface. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing like I showed before. I'm going to make a point to get that edge, because I do want that to happen. All right, so you're seeing all this detail coming through now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight to my white. This is also where rinsing the brushes, not rinsing the brush, will come in handy. So I'm going to rotate my plate. You probably won't even see the white because it's got a white bottom to it. Just put on, yeah, you can't. There is white there, trust me, there is white. I mean, got some on my finger. So there is white there. So I'm just going to go in with my brush still having some of those other grays on there. You can see what's going to happen here. Just going to do this a couple times. Get some white onto my brush. And now do my last run around, and I am very lightly, this is like feather touch, okay? You do not have to press down terribly hard on this. I am dragging it lightly across, and now it's really getting a stone-like appearance to it. To the point where I don't even think I need to worry about a wash, because we have those deep grooves showing from having painted it black. But now the white is highlighting those higher points. And I really want to get this around the edge here. But you can see the transformation, how now it has that more stone-like look to it. And this is just in grays. All right, I'm going to go back in with a little bit more on my brush. Like I said, I really want to focus on the edges right now. So you can see it highlights the edge a little bit more by doing that. And now I'm going to take this. It's so thin, it's a little tricky to show you on camera, but I'm basically dry brushing the edge with the white. But the thing is, by not rinsing my brush off, it doesn't come as a true white. It's a very, very light gray, which is intentional. You can still be blending colors on your brush, which I find fun. And I'm literally just going through and highlighting as I go along, hitting those points I really want to bring out. In fact, I might do a little bit more through here. Yeah. Okay, so here we go. This gives me my lovely stone base. And now, as you can see here, like I talked about before, I think I'm going to just treat this as more of like a lighter gray. I do want to get that taken care of. So I'm going to put this into the water. I'm going to move back to this, just this general brush. I'm going to go in, make it a little bit lighter if I can. There we go. I'm just going to get this area so it's a lighter gray. Just like this. Quick and easy and simple. And that'll pretty much take care of this section. Neatens it up so you don't have the various colors hopping around on you. You know, if I get quiet, I'm concentrating. I'm not ignoring you. At least I'm not trying to. Question, if you wanted more of red. Okay, so that's a good question, Ron. If you wanted to have more of a red, like a clay base type of red, are you thinking? Or a brick red? Well, brick and clay, kind of the same thing. If you want to have more of a red color to it, what you would do is start off with a very dark brown instead of the black like I did. You'd go into a dark brown and make sure it is a red hued brown. Then, believe it or not, you'd go in with a orange. A darker orange, not like bright orange. Michael Wheeler's Icon orange is too orange. But you'd go in with a dark orange, and then you'd move into your tans for a more red-like stone. That's how I would go about doing it. I think I may even have, I think I might, there may even be a reddish stone technique. Yes, there is, on my channel. I want to say it's in connection to my Zobek build. If you need reference for that one, for how to paint that particular kind of stone. I just have one last one to go here, right through here, and this will give them time to dry before I start gluing pieces on. The whole thing is I didn't want to have this be a dark black piece for the figures to go onto. Okay, so just that. That's plenty. That's enough. Okay, let me put that over there and then not rinse the brush in my tea. You might be a painter if. Okay, so I can get these taken care of. And now the next thing I'm going to move on to is going right back into these ghosties. And I'm going to show you the fun little thing I like to do just to give them more of a magical, iridescent-y, glowing-esque look to them. And it's basically, if you can find those paints that are of the shifting variety, okay, so they shift tones. I have one that shifts from blue to silver to like a lime green almost, that I really like the look of, and since this is something that is blues and greens and whatnot, I'm going for that. But really any particular paint that has a color shift quality to it, that is what you want to do for this next step. I'm just making sure right now I am rinsing off my brushes, and I will need this brush again, the big wide brush that I just used on the base. So give me just a minute to make sure I get, because you also want to make sure you get as much of the paint out. I'm glad it was helpful for you to see that going from dark to light. If you look at stones naturally, they have varied hues. So even though from a distance it might look like a gray rock, if you look closely at a gray stone, you see it has all those colors built into it. So if you even can find a piece of the red color of rock that you want to do, take a look at that rock and notice the different colors you see in there. And that'll help you determine which colors you really want to tap into to help recreate that in your paints. That is my advice to you on that one. So let me put the water over here, and then we're gonna bring the ghosties back out. You can see how they're doing. Here are our ghosties. I have to fix the focus again. Focus, darlings, focus. There we go. All right, focus on them is fixed. Shifting plate out of sight. So you can see how they're drying up and everything like that. I am going to go back in, and I do see a couple little puddles, and this happens with washes. So I'm just going to go in here and just double check. Okay, good. It's not a wet puddle. It'll pick up some of the excess, but it's not a huge wet puddle. I wanted to make sure of that one. So there we go. So what I'm going to do is I am going to use this shifting paint color. I cannot give you the official brand just because, but you can find so many of these paints with so many different makers now. But this one, like I said, it shifts from a green to a blue, like a very light periwinkle blue, to a silver to a gold. And I just find it is so much fun to do this really quickly and very lightly. So I've just put a little bit onto my brush, and it's basically like dry brushing. Okay, see, this is the color of it. And I'm just going to, what I want to do is get the folds of the fabrics, especially. And you can see it starts to get the shifting going on. Makes them look shifty. No, I'm kidding. So I'm just going to go around really quick, and I'm doing this lightly. I'm not looking for complete and total coverage. I just want this to pop up and show every so often. But because of this style paint, it too will keep this transparent. It won't make it go opaque. It's something I want to very much avoid. And it always helps to work against the grain of the folds of the fabric. This is just an extra step I like to do. I find it just sort of helps give them a little bit more visual interest by doing that. Go back to the face here. And this might be the paint where I can go in and use that in the eyes. If not, what I'll just do is, I don't have silver with me, I would default to doing a silver for the eyeballs, for the glowing, well, sockets, I should say. The glowing sockets. Okay, that's enough on that guy. Yeah, it gives them just a little extra. Like I said, I love doing this for magic effects and, you know, creatures like this. Spookies. Spooky, scary ghosties. And it's a light touch. It is not at all, let me cover it completely. And I am even taking it around the base here. You can see that happening there. See? There we go. You can see the shifting happening right there. And that's the point. You want the light to play through. You don't want this to be obliterated, because then it takes away that ethereal spookiness that happens. Just work my way over here. And I am focusing on the higher points of the sculpt, okay? I am not getting it into the grooves. I don't want to get it into the grooves. I don't wanna. You can't make me. You can see as it moves around, you get these different flashes of color going on here. There's the silver. Here comes the blue. It's really a fun little extra touch. Now, mind you, the staff is making this angle slightly tricky for me. But there we go. I do want to make sure I get the staff as well. And it helps bring out those textures. It's like highlighting without making it opaque. So this is where I will baby them a little bit more by adding on this. You know what, now that I'm looking here, I want to get this skull a little bit more. There. See, it just, it adds to the creepiness of them. It really does in my book, in my humble opinion. And the nice thing is this is a paint you can build up on. So let me just quickly. All right, you can see that my brush is getting a little funky on me, and that happens sometimes. So I'm just going to get this one. There we go. That helped. If your brush ever splits on you like that, it helps if you can get it on a surface where you can just do a straight drag across. And more often than not, it'll help pull the bristles back into form. Now this is the one that doesn't have the face, so I definitely don't want to get this into the face area. I want to leave that gaping and creepy. Pull up and across. Stay put. Get a little bit more paint of that. You know, just move it around. I always recommend you move your minis around to get into those different angles. I definitely want to get the tops of the hands with this because they have these great bony textures to them. But this is what happens when you add in that color shifting. It just adds to their creepiness. All right, so that's 3 of them. I'm just doing one last look to see. I may even go back and add a little bit more once this dries. We shall see. We shall see. Now over these 2. Same thing, same difference. Same brush, same paint, different figure. And this guy's a little bit more open, so it's easier to really get this on him. He may actually show off the shifting the best because of his heft. But you know, this is essentially my ghosty paint. You want a spooky creature? Here you go. Here you go. Now it's a thing. Just keep working it around. Yeah, I especially like, see? I had a feeling he'd be the one who'd really be the showcase showing you. But yeah, you can still see my hands playing underneath. Almost looks like he's hailing a cab from this angle. That's my non sequitur. Pay no attention. That's just, you know, connecting dots in an odd way. But yes, I'm a big fan. Yeah, he's showing it off the best of all of them. He's giving you the better sense of how this looks all together. So there you go. All right, let me get the last one. Tax! Right? Taxi! Although who knows, maybe he was screaming tax in his previous life. He was like a big lord or something. Now this one's showing it off nicely too. Yay. Yeah. To me, this just always is a great effect to add to anything of the more supernatural presence. But this is the fun you can do with color shift paints. Regardless of brand, regardless of how they tag it, you want to make sure it's a paint that has this almost holographic shift to it, is what it boils down to. And trust me, there are a lot floating out there now. Vallejo has them too, obviously. There we go. Our spooky ghosties. All right, so that's that for this particular paint and that brush. Now, let me quickly see. Yeah, I think I can get away with painting these now. Not painting these, the varnish. As I said, we have that little bit of the clouding that happens, and that's perfectly normal. So I am taking, it is just the gloss varnish, and I'm going to apply this so you can see what happens once that gloss gets onto them. I'll be using this brush again. This is like my all-purpose brush, quite frankly. And it's just a matter of getting in there and getting this into your nooks and crannies. And you can see side by side that has more of the shine to it as opposed to the matte that's happening here. Granted, the shift coloring on it has helped already, but this I find helps tie it all in together once you get the varnish on. But you do want to make sure you get it into all the little grooves and everything. And you're going to want to make sure you're tucking that in. So move this around. And any of the dullness from the wash drying is counteracted by this gloss varnish completely. And if you really want to get it even glossier looking, you can do a couple coats of this, depending on just how shiny you want it to be. And I know there is a song that talks about shiny. However, we're not going to sing it for reasons, for YouTube reasons. Okay, so here you have one that has been finished and one that hasn't quite. You can see here how there's still this matte-like quality, and here now it is far more shimmering as a result. So it's up to you. If you want it to have a shiny quality to it, a glossier property to it, go in for the gloss. If you want to have it stay more of this muted matte, if you like that look, then you want to do a satin finish instead. All right, a satin will be your friend for sealing these up instead if you want to keep the more muted matte underneath the gloss of the color shifting tones. So I will drop that little tip in there too, if for some reason you preferred that. I like making them glossy. That is my preference. And again, remember, it is your minis, your table. I'm just getting it into every little place I can here. Face. See? Now he too is shiny. Moving over to this one. I enjoy doing this type of plastic. I think it's fun, the challenge of it, and once you kind of get a feel for how to do it, still being able to bring out a lot of details, but keep this magical, haha, appropriate Magic the Gathering, magical look to the miniature too. So this is what I do. This is what I do with it. Well, hello, Gallant Goblin. Thank you. You're catching me with the varnishing. This is a glossy varnish I'm putting on. Okay, so here you have, see the difference there? This is with the varnish. They have a little bit more of a shimmer than these guys do. And if I hadn't put the color shifting deal on, you'd really see the difference at this point. All right, but those three are addressed. I love that. I enjoy that greatly. So I need a little bit more of this varnish because I used what I put up already. And I'll get these last two. I'll start with the big guy first. I make it look so easy. Well, thank you. Hopefully it is approachable and people can give this a go and get a feel for it. If you don't start, you never know. That's the one thing. I know a lot of people sort of hold off because they're afraid they're going to do it wrong. Well, that's okay. It's a mini. You can always repaint it if need be. But you also learn a lot by doing. Watching, sure, you can pick up some tips, but until you start applying those, no pun intended, because as I'm applying the paint, as you apply what you are seeing into your own techniques, you'll get better. You know, it's almost like training for a sport. In time, you learn and you figure things out, and your hands develop the muscle memory for how to move and how to hold the brush and everything like that. So if you're sitting on the sidelines, I wish I could. I'm going to say I wish you would. I wish you would jump right into painting with me because it's a lot of fun. I've honestly been enjoying seeing what people are sharing for the Ogre Zombie Paint Night kit because I did the tutorial for that one. So it's great seeing the results of what people have done and what they, you know, not necessarily walk out with because many of them are doing it from home, but what they have as their end result. It really is. It's fantastic. Okay, that one is now fully varnished. Last one. And I will, after I have glued these on to the base, what I will do for the base is a matte finish. Debating if I want to do, there's one last thing I want to do. I don't know if I want to play around with one source lighting. Because it's another thing you can do with this particular paint. Do I, don't I? That is the $1,000,000 question, isn't it? Just making sure I didn't go too ham with the varnish. Yeah, we're looking good for that one too as well. Okay. There we go. So they need to dry a little bit with that varnish seal on them. Oh, you're giving the zombie. Oh, very cool. Hopefully she enjoys. I hope she has fun with that. I really do. It's great hearing people get involved with miniature painting and learning quite frankly. It's a good thing. Not to quote a certain someone, but I find it to be a great thing when people take the chance and jump in. Okay, I think for the sake of showing you as an option, it's sort of a quick cheat, OSL, one source lighting. So you can tell already where these ghosties are going to sit simply because of the lock and key factor. I'm going to go back into this shifting tones. And what I will do sometimes, if I want to just have a fun little nod to the glow, get it into focus, honey. I will dance around where I want this glow to happen. So you can see right there the subtle glow that adds. Just like that. I'm just going to feather it slightly. And now you have this glowing-esque shimmer. So I'm going to go around and do that to all of those. All right. So these are all going to get that. And you could spread this out farther if you want to. I'm kind of treating it as more of like a little halo, if you will. It's probably a good way to put it. I'm adding a halo of this around their bases and where they're going to go. Just like so. And these two are going to combine together a little bit just because of how close they are to each other. But that gives you an idea of how that creates sort of a source of light effect. And get on the other side going on now here. What I might even do, debating, we shall see. Thinking I might put it around the locking point, we shall see. Oh, that's fantastic, Benebula. I'm happy to hear that. Welcome to the club. Welcome to the Mini Painting Club. Happy to have you joining us. I'll be happy when everything is safe, vaccines are happening, and all that goodness where we can have conventions and paint-alongs together again. I'm really looking forward to doing that. I miss that. But here you can see this adds some glowing qualities. I may even have some fun and just start bringing a little bit further back here. Nothing too outrageous. But now that my brush isn't quite as loaded, just sort of add a feathered shimmer out. Just like that. You can actually see it better if I sort of see, so you get this glow going. All right, so you have that. Let me see, how are we doing in terms of, yeah, but that's how easily they come off now. So this one, I'm not gluing them on quite yet, but I did want you to sort of see the effect that gets created. And then again, just lifts off easily. Telling you, that has been such a huge help. Doing this when I need to do assembly lines. Pulls off, it doesn't do any damage to the paint. Look, see, free floating, able to move around, no big deal. Our lots are here, right? Have to refresh my memory as who goes where, and they are kind of coated at the bottom because they have these shapes, and you basically match the shapes to the base for them to lock on, which you can't see right now because of the focus I have going on here, but trust me, it's there. Okay, so right now they are secured on. But you can see how, because we have the color shifting going on the Mini, when you look at the base, it carries through to act as sort of this light effect. It's a quick little cheat for those of you just starting out and wanting to play around with it a little bit. But you can see, it's like a merry-go-round. Here we go. Here is our Ghost Council. And like I said, all I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to, well, now that I've put this on the top, I might compromise with the satin on the top. But that, here, let me get the visual noise out of the way. Just want you guys to get a good sense. Look, see? There you go. Now you can see that glow. It's really a fun extra touch. I find it to be very useful and very handy to have. But you can see my hand is still playing through. Light will still be able to play through quite easily. Do I have... I don't have a light source I could play behind this too easily. But yeah, here they are, all set. They just, honestly, they need to dry a little bit more before I start doing anything further. So I'm just gonna set that to the side here. And the nice thing is you can reuse these if you want to, just use fresh pieces of tape. Really, it's when they start getting kind of bent or cracked. That's where you have to replace your popsicle sticks. So I'm going to flip back up to main screen. Hi, it's the main screen again. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed seeing this Magic the Gathering painting of the Obzedat, right? I think I have the pronunciation right. Ghost Council. Again, these are in stores. So if you want to get that set, the set is the 5 translucent, transparent plastic miniatures with the specialized base. They sell for $8.99 together in one blister pack, which is quite helpful. And then also don't forget that this amazing creature, the black dragon, the adult black dragon, is in stores today. Okay, he is in stores today, ready to go, ready to get added to your collection. And trust me, this is one you'll want for your collection. It's just, oh, I love the pose. I love the expression on the face. It's just, everything is, it's been captured beautifully for the type of dragons these are and the personalities and everything that goes into them. So that is the Black Dragon from the D&D Nolzur's Marvel, no, from the D&D Icons of the Realms Adult Black Dragon. $69.99. It can be yours today. I mean, it wouldn't look too bad, you know, as someone's present either. Just saying. But here you go for that one. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Again, for all of these things that you've seen me share with you today, check with your FLGS first and foremost. See if they have these available and ready for purchase. If for some reason you don't have a game store near you, well, that's where you can definitely hop online and check out shop.wizkids.com, check out D&D Mini, Amazon. There are a bunch of resources out there if you don't have an FLGS, but please do reach out to them. So many of them have different options in terms of curbside pickup, scheduled pickups from the store itself. Some are even shipping directly to your home once you place your order, usually for an additional fee, of course, but just be aware that there are options out there. Don't think that they can't jump in and help you out as well. And we want to make sure that they get that big shout out as well. So next week, we're going to be looking at the D&D Icons of the Realms, Icewind Dale, Frost Maiden, Rime of the Frost Maiden, Papercraft, the Lodge, as well as 10 Towns. I'm looking very much forward to assembling these, showing them off to you, and giving you an idea of how these work as terrain pieces. So make sure you join me next week for that, and then I will be off until the new year. So I'll see you that first week in January when everyone is back with another Mini Mayhem. So I'm going to wrap this up like I do every single time. Be good to yourselves, be good to each other. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you on the flip side. Bye, everyone.